This is TWIS, This Week in Science, episode number 983, recorded on Wednesday, August 21st, 2024. Wow! How do we know that? Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight we will fill your head with dodos, humidity, and wow. But first, thanks to our amazing Patreon sponsors for their generous support of TWIS. You can become a part of the Patreon community at patreon.com/thisweekinscience.
Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. Things are starting to feel just a little less weird. Yes, the weirdness of the world has not gone away. There's a war raging between a former superpower and Ukraine, a genocide taking place in Palestine. Women in several U.S. states continue to suffer from a rollback of their civil rights. A convicted criminal who helped roll back those rights is running for president of the United States for the fourth time. Astronauts were sent to space without a return ticket. The greatest threat to humanity continues to be talked about as if it isn't already happening. And in recent weeks, something has changed that has put the weirdness into perspective. Not to get too political on a science podcast, but the current Democratic ticket for the executive branch just seems a whole lot more normal than anything they are up against. And being a whole lot more normal is just what the world needs right now. That and another episode of This Week in Science coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science to you, Kiki, and eventually, Blair.
Good science to you too, Justin. And when Blair gets here, Blair, and everyone out there, thank you for joining us for another episode of This Week in Science. We are back again on our live Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific time broadcast of this podcast to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, which has been edited nicely for all of you podcast listeners. Thanks for joining us again. We have, I think, a pretty good show ahead. There's a whole lot of science.
We should find out actually before we come to air whether or not we have a pretty good show. Because then we could tell. Because if we just are guessing still, then maybe we're not ready.
I mean, it's one of those things, it's like qualitative, not quantitative. How do we determine who's biased, who's not biased? How do we have a control group for? Anyway. We're doing a great show tonight, and we're glad you're here. So we have a whole bunch of stories. My stories have to do with memory mechanisms, photons for microscopes and consciousness, electron clouds, and something about the wow. What do you have for us, Justin?
Oh, let's see. Justin discovers humidity. There's where you are buying, if you're buying your food online, where you buy it, how you buy it, and who you are when you buy it may determine whether or not it's a healthy choice.
That's interesting because we all want to make sure that our choices are, good ahead of time. And just to, take a little bit off of Blair's plate, the Animal Corner is going to, in the first part, hopefully have some dodos, some humpbacks, and glowy spiders. Nightmare spiders, as she is saying. Yes, that's what she says in the chat because she's on her way.
Dodos, humpback fools, and nightmare spiders.
That's right. Claire's on her way. Oh. All right, everybody. If you have not done so previously, before we jump into the science, I want you to know that, of course, you can find us wherever your favorite podcasts are found. Look for This Week in Science. We do, as I said earlier, broadcast live weekly on Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Pacific time to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. And if you want to hit those notifications, share with people. That's really awesome. Also, if there's a lot of information, YouTube has chapters, so you can go straight to our segments on all the topics we talk about. And our website is TWIS.org if you want to get the links and other stuff that's going on with us. TWIS.org. That's where it is. Da, da, da. Should we talk about science?
Let's.
All right, let us do so. Okay. I am not going to wait for it. I am going to dive just straight into wow territory.
Oh my goodness. What's happening?
What's
Where?
happening?
What?
What's happening in that world out there? Once upon a time, there was a telescope that was looking at radio signals called the Big Ear Telescope. Ohio State University had the Ohio Sky Survey. It was looking at the 21 centimeter hydrogen line at 8 megahertz, spanning from about 1411 to 1419 megahertz. And they were surveying a bunch of radio sources in the night sky, 20,000 of them. They hadn't been observed previously. I mean, before the 70s, how many radio telescopes and sky surveys had we really done? But research kept going forward, and the data from that survey got processed, and eventually researchers took a look at it, and one of the researchers saw a signal that didn't seem like everything else, and in the in the actual printout wrote "wow" next to
Okay,
it.
so this is the wow signal. Wow signal. This
The
is
wow
is
signal.
that
This is what
famous,
SETI. This is
infamous.
what the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Like this is the. This is like, what is this? Wow, wow, that's different. But it wasn't with any meaning. It was just, wow. We've never been able to explain it. A lot of people have come up with different explanations, but we haven't really had all of the tools to survey further, to look at things more in depth. I mean, as we advance as a society and as we come up with new tools, of course, the resolution increases, our hypotheses change, the tools, everything changes. So now these researchers have published in archive.org their study of the WOW signal, but from Arecibo. So the Arecibo Radio Telescope Observatory, which suffered great damage during a storm and has since been decommissioned. Arecibo had a lot of data that hadn't completely been analyzed yet, and researchers said, hey, maybe we'll take a look at some of the stuff that's in there. And so University of Puerto Rico at Arecibo, Abel Mendez and astrophysicist Kevin Ortiz Ceballos of Harvard and Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Jorge Zuluaga of Antioquia, Colombia, published this study this last week, in which they kept looking over the data from Arecibo with respect to the hydrogen signal and the particular frequency that the 8 megahertz signal that hydrogen sits at. And so when they were looking at the data, they saw that there were a lot of signals that were similar to the WOW signal, but not as bright. So they were like, baby wows. And so it could be, they suggest, atomic hydrogen that's cold, that's a gas cloud, that's maybe scattered around a forming galaxy, or galaxies are already there. So, and so they started looking at magnetars, really bright radio sources that could just go like a I'm blanking on the name. I'm totally blanking on the name of the spotlights, but a really bright spotlight through the hydrogen gas clouds, and maybe they could get something similar to the WOW signal. And so they were looking at these magnetars and tried looking for signals in the wavelength where there might be an effect that was similar to the WOW signal. And it's really like what SETI's been looking for, but it's not aliens, because according to this study from the data in Arecibo, what they've been looking at, they were able to suggest that these WOW events are specifically the illumination of gas clouds by something that is releasing a really, really bright burst of radio energy, like a magnetar. So they specifically went and looked for it. They found signals that were very similar to the WOW signal within the Arecibo data. I mean, this is also like, we have this idea, we're going to go looking for the data. So now we need to confirm further. Now there need to be more surveys. Now there need to be more, like a halogen light. Yes, physics police, but I'm thinking of something else that it's on the tip of my tongue. It's one of those kinds of things. But
is it like a theater kid thing, or like Fresnel's and what's the other? The names of the actual spotlights that
No, it is the name of the gas that is in the particular light element that allows for really, really, really bright lights. And I'm blanking on it right now. Yes, I'll get to it. It'll come back to me like whatever. Anyway,
let's focus on this. Let's get this solved first. Don't worry about the WOW signal from space later.
We need to focus on the story, which is that they've got these peaks that match. They've been looking at particular stars that have been identified as dying magnetars, or that they know have hydrogen clouds or surrounding them. And so they've been able to really kind of get nail down the elements of what they're calling astronomical hydrogen masers. So it's like it's a narrow signal band, and it's a brief pulse, and it happened just really cool. So the clouds are there, they get illuminated by something going wow, and then everybody's excited, but probably not aliens. Xenon, that was it. Thank you, Eric Knapp. You said neon, and but it's xenon. Xenon, yes, that makes the really, really bright lights. Yeah, thank you.
So, okay, one, I have to say, I'm very surprised that if we had any of this overlapping data, that we haven't drilled down on the WOW signal a long time ago.
SETI's been working at it for a while, and there is overlapping data, but SETI has their own process for observing and analyzing data. And in the paper, like they do say, like it's there's part of it, like there were SETI efforts from Arecibo, but they weren't specifically looking at it in the same way. This doesn't mean that SETI isn't something we shouldn't continue funding. It just means that there are lots of questions. And this is a possibility. Maybe it's just like space masers.
Well, so there's two things I want to, the directions of my brain goes. First of all, if you're looking for a similar signature of any kind of a signal, you can probably find it in one of these magnetars, because it's got to be like cross the bandwidths energy release that is creating every kind of like distortion over cross wavelengths,
timing,
frequencies,
and now we have
the whole thing.
pulsars. We've got LIGO. We've
Yeah.
got the space pulsar timing array. We've got all sorts of stuff. We're like, so triangulation.
I almost don't that like you could somehow back engineer an I Love Lucy episode from a magnetar explosion. Like there's like enough energy, data, frequency, and stuff coming out of it to like say, oh, we found this little wow signal amidst something with that much of a release. It would still make me suspect that we needed more confirmation of that of this. But on the other hand, if you're looking at it with the same time point,
yes,
that this is an overlapping event and an overlapping observation of the same event, then you're like, yeah, actually, it's no longer needle in a haystack. It's needle, and then comparing it to other needles that were observed at the same time, likely the same needle. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
Needles in a stack of observations.
Exactly. So this is one mechanism that they believe aligns with the wow signal that was originally seen. It doesn't take away from our questioning of anything else, but it's rare. It hasn't been detected really before, and what's the progenitor, right? What is it always a magnetar? Where'd the hydrogen clouds come from? What's going on there? So there's a lot of questions revolving around that localization and the origin and continuous monitoring, which is what SETI does, right? So what do you want to talk about next?
Have I got? Oh, yeah. Let's just get this right off.
That was a big pause. Okay.
Let's get this right off of the, because I was reading and typing into the comments. I should always have the comments down because then I start like paying attention to the wrong thing. Let's start with the thing that is Justin discovers humidity.
You went to Florida?
No,
Georgia.
I didn't. Denmark.
Denmark, what? Yeah, okay.
Okay. This is from the University of Tokyo. It's saying that climate change has measurable impacts on society, including on human mortality. So there are these predictive models out there that have already looked ahead at the impacts of global warming. And they're saying, oh, the impacts of weather here, extreme heat there, sea level rise over here for these folks, and then farming, what the weather and the climate's going to do to that in certain areas, water shortages, or having too much rain, you could have flooding, or if you don't get any, you have drought, and then you've got wildfires, and how all of this might play out in the future. However, current models to assess these health impacts of climate change do not account for everything, every environmental parameter that we may encounter, specifically humidity. And who cares? It's just moisture in the air. It's not even rain. Like, what's the big deal? Says me, who... Okay, so I am from California. And a part of California that is amongst, I would say, one of the hottest places in the world. Pretty reliably every summer we have...
Central Valley is amazing. Yes.
Very extended, sometimes week-long runs of what would be 45 C or, over 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Like, we have pretty extreme heat.
It's lovely.
But it's a dry heat. And if you're from California and really only lived there, you don't know what that means. You're like, it's hot. What are you talking about? Dry. Oh, yeah. I wish it was a little wet. Hey, and then you hear about this heat wave in other places that's like 90 degrees. And you're like, that's nothing. That's like a cool summer day in the Central Valley of California. But something that, so it has meant nothing to me, this humidity talk, never having lived in these human climates, until very recently. I went for a walk in Copenhagen last week and seriously thought I was going to pass out from heat. Temperature-wise, it was in the 70s of Fahrenheit. It was just above like high room temperature. It wasn't hot at all. it was maybe even like a light sweater weather still maybe a little bit too warm for that, but still not like hot.
Hot, but not
But
hot.
the humidity was so high that as I was on my walk, I wasn't sweating at all. I couldn't release any of my internal heat to the outside atmosphere because the humidity was higher than my body could sweat. Like it was like this was like really. I was complaining about it. Somebody's like, I think there's something wrong with me that this heat is getting to me, and it's not even. And then they explained to me the concept of humidity and that everyone was equally suffering from it. So these researchers who did understand the effects of humidity have been sort of incorporating humidity data from hundreds of cities to create heat stress indicators, HSIs, and assess their performances in predicting heat-related deaths. What they found, maybe not surprisingly, is that, let's see, where were they? They were 793 cities in 43 countries and territories around the world, calculated 8 different heat stress indicators, and compared them to mortality rates and temperature. They found that humidity was a better predictor of mortalities that were going to be experienced in an area than a heat index alone. So makes sense. And as we talk about the dangers of global warming, we also have to realize when we lose a significant amount of water that is frozen at caps currently, that humidity doesn't just that moisture that it turns into humidity. That ice turns into humidity. It doesn't just go away.
Oh, right. Well,
it's going to be rain, certainly. It's going to be sea level rise, absolutely. But it's also going to be increased humidity. So even if Florida builds a wall that they're so fond of around the entire coastline to keep the sea out, the humidity will be higher than it is now. And from what I've heard, it's already awful there. So this could actually be another major threat to humanity that I never would have taken seriously for a second until I, had to experience it firsthand to believe a thing, which is a terrible way to have to do everything. But
where you are in Denmark is not a. You talk about the temperature of the average temperature or the daily temperature. It doesn't get to Central Valley type temperatures most of the time.
No.
And what we want to talk about is the heat bulb index, which is Blair. You're here? Welcome. And
hi.
It's so good to have you here. But climate change and the humidity is so much. There's so much involved in how hot places that get humid are, because not the heat, it's not the humidity, it's both together, or it's the wet bulb index. Like you said, how much are you able to sweat? Can you thermoregulate in the environment?
Yeah, it's brutal. It was I'd never experienced anything like that living in the Central Valley and never having visited Florida or New York in the summer or whatever. I didn't know what humidity felt like, and it felt like dying.
Humidity in Florida is being 90 degrees,
hot Atlanta,
raining, right? Just fully raining. You're drenched because you were outside because it was hot. And then it's 90 degrees again, but you're still wet. You never get dry from being rained on because it's so humid that there's nowhere for the water to go. So you're just walking around hot and wet.
Yeah, and that was the day I had, because I was wearing a raincoat.
I'm just in the shower.
Because it had been just pouring rain earlier, and it was almost 90 degrees. No, sorry. I was almost 80 degrees. It wasn't even that hot. It was almost 80 degrees. But as I'm walking, initially I had sweat from just walking. But then as the humidity or something happened, then I stayed wet and I like was ready to pass out from the heat. Like I couldn't get rid of this like internal temperature. It was just rising still. It was like cooking. It was cooking me. Oh my God.
Yeah, I recently read that somebody claimed that there's no such feeling, or was that on this show? There's no
Probably
such
it was
feeling.
me.
That was here, wasn't it?
Probably
That was
me.
here.
I read
I'm
recently,
losing
or
all
was-
sense of reality.
It was
It was
probably
the
me
idea
making
that-
fun of humidity.
That there's no such thing as feeling wet. There's just feeling cold as the water
Oh.
evaporates. There's no feeling called wet,
Yeah.
which I take issue with because you can feel wet when it's hot out and humid. Like,
but it's still the
It's
temperature
not-
differential. It's based on differential. So it's the
Right.
change that is the thing as opposed to the thing itself, which is weird.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either, Blair.
I now know about humidity. And for all of those people who I mocked complaining about humidity in lower temperature areas than the Central Valley, I apologize now because I was very wrong. Heat is nothing. Dry heat is nothing compared to a warm, highly humid day. That is the worst way to exist.
I
Try
think
to
that
survive.
brings to a good point, though, the reality that it's hard to put yourself in the place that other people are in when you have not experienced it yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And so understanding what what humidity means, what that temperature, 80 degrees and 90% humidity, 90 degrees and 100%. Yeah. What do these numbers actually mean to the way that you feel, the way that you can live? How do you survive in it? What are the adaptations? And, at this point, it's the only way that we're going to be able to exist in these places that are humid and hot is going to be air conditioning and energy related solutions. So if we can get on that sustainability train, woo, woo, let's make that happen. Or Blair, is that was that phrase as dead as a dodo?
Well, the dodos may be dead, but if they were here, they would be very upset with how they are portrayed. And that is what my story is about tonight. So, some researchers from several universities banded together, mostly in the UK. This was Oxford Natural History Museum of London and the University of Southampton. They worked together to look at 400 years of scientific literature related to the dodo and to study all museum specimens and museum records of the dodo to try to figure out what was the dodo really like. How many species of dodo were there? Because the reviews are mixed. There's a bunch of records of dodo species that were never described again, most likely did not exist. There's a bunch of records of a type of giant extinct pigeony looking bird called the solitaire that never existed.
Wait, what?
Which is funny because the dodo and the solitaire for a long time were assumed to be entirely mythological in nature by like the old world, right? Because they brought these records back and they were like, those aren't real. And they ate them all, so they could like,
nobody could
oh
say
shoot,
they
I ate
tasted
them all
delicious.
on the way here.
Everyone
I didn't
tasted
bring
like
any of them, so
dinosaur.
sorry. But yeah, so they kept describing these species that then, upon further reflection, wasn't an individual species. Comes down to it, there's only a few of each, the solitaire and the dodo. But still, researchers aren't sure exactly how many, because unless you can do DNA sequencing on all of them, there's really no way to know. You just have, and there's very few specimens. There might be a feather or a little bit of something, but really, we left no pieces behind when the colonizers arrived and ate them all. So anyway, there's
Wow.
the record is very tough. There is one piece of soft tissue at one of these museums that they were able to test and look at. There's a lot more research to be done, but ultimately what they found out was there's a very small group of species of each. They're definitely in the Columbidae family, so they're related to pigeons and doves.
Related to pigeons.
Yeah, they're giant ground pigeons is what they're calling them now. And so this is an entire lineage, they think, of pigeons, of doves, whatever you want to call them, that was not continued. So because of the way that we ate them all, and also they were predated upon by our dogs and cats and the rats that we accidentally brought, we can't see these guys in real life. But the thing that I really thought was interesting, and the reason I wanted to bring this story, is that when you think about a dodo, you think about them as dumb. And what else? What else do you think about dodos?
So I don't think of them as dumb. I think of them as having no fear of humans because they've never seen them before and not living in a place with no predators.
There's that.
Yeah, I think of them hanging out with a walrus.
Yes, the walrus and the carpenter.
But there was a dodo there too. Like there's something.
There was a dodo. Yes,
there was a dodo. Yes.
Yeah. So the other thing that I think people usually think about is that they were easy to catch. Which their reasoning there is that they were slow. They were these slow, lumbering ground creatures. Well, they looked at the bone specimens, and my favorite thing about the story is that they looked at the tendons between their toes, and it makes them think that they were good climbers and incredibly fast runners. They were almost certainly an active, fast animal. Yes, and they were forest-loving animals. So they just love to dart between the trees and climb trees, and I just love this idea of the dodo. Instead of going down the beach, they're zipping through the forest, and you can't even catch them because they're so fast and they're so quick between the trees. So
I think that's a fascinating reframing. I mean,
should we bring it back?
Question ostrich speed.
So Justin, you asked that question, and I'm going to surprisingly say yes.
Yeah.
Wait. What
yes,
and why?
Yes. Bring back.
It is a much more recent extinction. It is due to humans, not structural climactic shift of the planet. That is a natural extinction. And
just like the mammoths,
where these guys could go. So I feel like definitely bring back the dodo. That is my opinion.
Nice.
But it's different. This is only a few hundred years ago.
Also, for nothing else, just to defend its honor.
Right.
Yes. Or just to run away from all of the dodo fans in the world. Right. Leave me alone.
Yes. I think the asterisk I'd put on it is we should not be bringing back the dodo with money that could otherwise be put, or research that could otherwise be put towards saving current species that are not yet extinct that could be saved. So that's if we're talking reality here, and the resources that can bring me a dodo could instead save the tuatara, I'm going to go for the tuatara or the sea turtle, or these various things that are weird and unusual and almost dinosaur looking, but also need our help and could be saved.
But I do feel like those dollars could come from a very different arena than conservation, right? Like the interest in bringing back the dodo might be more money, might generate more money if there's they're doing a startup or a funding thing where they're like, we're bringing back the dodo and this is going to be our focus. We'll have it in zoos around the world, and it'll be like this big thing. We brought a creature back from extinction for the first time. Those dollars likely don't come from the people who are donating or funding conservatory actions. This sounds much more like Barnum and Bailey type.
Right.
Like, see the bird that went away from mankind's magnificence.
Yeah, so if you can use this as an excuse to fundraise and at the same time test scientific principles
of course,
to then help maintain or bring back other animals, then yes, it might be worth it. Yeah. If you can use the dodo as your guinea pig to figure out how to.
But that's what they're doing with the mammoths, the rhinos.
Right.
Like, there are a lot of species that they are using as these,
Right.
guinea pigs.
Yeah.
To
Well, and the
figure out.
rhinos are nice because they're like
Yeah.
still around. So there's something you could do with
Sort
those
of.
individuals
Yeah.
if you're able to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. But definitely, I think like you said, the real focus should be on let's be sustainable and try and maintain what we have, not just in like a frozen state, but let's work on being resilient and creating a human culture that works with the other animals on the planet.
So can I push
unless
back
of
on that
course we
just a little
can't,
bit?
and then it's all gone. Yeah, whatever. What?
Can I push back on that very forward-thinking
Nope.
thing for a second? Just to ask Blair. It's a question for Blair about the designations between what to conserve and not. I like your argument now for the mammoth.
I was going to say, it's a very blurry line.
I get it. You bring back the mammoth. It has no place to be. And it may have been climate. It may have been a comet strike event for the younger dryas. It may have been humans, though, also. But what do we do? That's a hard creature to manage on the planet. I understand that argument. The dodo, we've kind of made an agreement of how that could work. Here's the thing with the rhino. And the rhinoceros is my favorite animal on the planet at this point. I didn't realize that they were just giant puppies. Know that.
Yeah.
And that they're super sweet and that they cuddle together when they sleep and they're so smart. But this is a creature that's gone extinct during current modern human activities. And that hasn't changed. Our current situation hasn't changed. So how do you bring back something in a way that doesn't have a new place to go?
So the short answer, because we could talk about this for a long time, the short answer is that there are wildlife refuge spaces that were not established at that time. Okay. There are also lots of spaces that are being handed back over to native peoples that were originally taken by white people. And so those are areas where the animals that have always lived there could be reintroduced and could be cared for once again and not hunted or predated upon by rats.
So those are good answers. And yeah, I love, the more I've learned about rhinos, the more they have leaped far above my appreciation for other living things because they're giant puppies. They play. If you've ever seen rhinos playing, I swear it's the only equivalence I can make is like puppies or kittens going and antagonizing each other. And then
it's like watching Lightning McQueen and Mater, like from Cars. Kind of, if you imagine
I haven't seen that size, yet. It's on my list, Kiki. It's on my list.
Yeah.
I feel like I've tried to tell you about this before, and I've definitely told Kiki about it because I introduced her to a rhino at one point who acted like a puppy.
Beautiful animal. Oh my gosh. But anyway.
But it took me, because I'm a terrible skeptic and horror. I learn very slowly. It took me having to see sleeping rhinos cuddled together and them playing out in the Copenhagen Zoo before I was like, oh my gosh, they're so sweet.
They're the sweetest. They also have big horns that people like to take, and so let's protect them.
Over my rhino bias.
Let's protect these animals. But you didn't see rhinos one way, and now you see them a new way. And this is one of the cool things about science is that, like I said earlier, technology advances and we're able to image things differently and we can see things in a whole new light. Just like you go, wait, what? So please tell me how you first learned about electron orbitals in the model of the atom.
You mean like where you have the nucleus and then you
and they're
you
rings.
Have the circles around it. Yeah, you have the rings. But then
I feel like
in high school they go, oh, it's more like a cloud. They're everywhere at
You
once.
came
Bam,
along
bam,
later,
bam,
so
bam,
you
bam,
got the
bam, bam.
cloud. I didn't
Yeah.
get the
You got the
cloud.
cloud. We didn't have the cloud. I seem to have it connected. I don't remember exactly, but I have it. The sound of an 8mm film trying to grab traction as the reel starts up in the classroom. That's somehow associated with electron spin orbitals.
So let's talk about those orbitals. What's really going on there? Those orbitals are quantum wave functions. So the probability of an electron, which is just this thing that has an energetic definition that we've defined by math and physics, it's the probability of it being in a place at a particular time. And we're like, woo, it's in a ring. No, it's in a cloud. It can be anywhere in the cloud, but it's like a sphere. So that probability wave, oh, my dear people, the way that electrons interact with each other, especially the outer valence shells, those are the ones on the like outer levels away from the nucleus. So they're not as bonded. They're not as like held in by those mass forces, and they don't need to be close in. They're like more willing to go somewhere else and hang out elsewhere. You can other atoms and molecules impact the outer valence shells. So instead of that sphere, you can imagine it being stretched out into maybe more of an oblate spheroid. So it's more of a rounded top kind of thing. So it's they can be pulled and affected by other things. And so that probability cloud is impacted by the probability clouds of other atoms and molecules. And so researchers are trying to evaluate how they can predict where electrons are going to be at any point in time. And so this new study out this week through the American Chemical Society is sharing observation using synchrotron X-rays to look at glycine molecules. The reason they chose glycine is that it has an amine group, which has nitrogen and 3 hydrogens bonded to it. Also has a carbon bonded to oxygens. And so the electron density and valence, the chemistry is different for all these things. The positives, the negatives, and how they are structured is different. There's no sphere anywhere. There's not even an oblate spheroid. There is a structure that looks like, I don't know, somebody's kindergarten painting of a My Little Pony. The molecule, what they were able to do by the X-ray diffraction and experimentation with the molecules was to be able to get over time enough images of these molecules to be able to come up with theoretical calculations that allowed them to predict with very, very high, like really, really significant probability, the actual like quote unquote location of electrons around the nucleus for each of the atoms in the glycine molecule. And this is really exciting because what this allows us to do is, for the last several decades, there's a part of biochemistry and like quantitative chemistry that involves the angle of the molecule and why there's positive and negative ionic forces and how big the angle is. But why is there a bigger angle with the 2 oxygens bonded to the carbon than there is to the nitrogens and the hydrogens? And so there's these relationships that we know, but now the math can become maybe a little bit more specific. And once we know the probability of where these energy signals we call electrons that we have inferred to be electrons, where they exist, we can make better predictions about how to create new molecules, about how to understand how molecules interact with one another, and to be able to maybe create better treatments for diseases, create more effective molecules than nature has done through trial and error. Who knows? But I think it is a very exciting idea that we could really start to figure out, what we used to think of as, these spheroid valence shells. Like the model that I grew up with chemistry is so gone. And now we have new, completely wonderful concepts that are going to move us forward in different and better directions. And I'm so excited about it. I'm here for this.
That's very exciting. And I get to say now the thing they always say, time to rewrite the textbooks. But I will also say, I'm really glad I don't have to learn this, because
they're going to still teach it kind of the same, like, conceptual way. It's like, let's look at it simply. And that you don't know.
Yeah,
all
but
these
they're
things,
gonna add the extra level now. They start you with the circles, then they turn into the spheres, then they talk about the kind of the nuance, and now they're gonna be like, and now here's the next step, this weird looking stuff.
This other crazy
draw
thing.
me this valence structure, and you're gonna be like, squiggle? A+.
I don't know. Yes, you did great.
So, this is always gonna bother me. You're trying to take a picture of a thing with what? The thing that you would take the picture with it is the thing that you're trying to take the picture of.
That's true, yeah.
And one weird thing.
But it's X-rays. They took pictures with X-rays.
Yeah.
Now
it's electrons all the way down.
Different energy frequencies, right?
Got it. Here's the thing. We also know that this massless energy doesn't exist in time the way any of the physical things that we interact with do. So then, how do you take a picture with its different energy version of itself and account for the fact that it doesn't quite exist in time the way we conceive it, like this? So I think the shell, right? The shell might survive, really, because yes, if you take a X-ray blink of time exposure, it might seem like it looks like this, but you have to remember that they're not paying any attention to time because it's a massless object with energy that's in motion. Like, it doesn't care what your TikTok time is when you took the picture. It's still everywhere else also. Electrons are nonsense.
Everything is nonsense.
Not clear. They're absolute nonsense.
You want to call electrons nonsense? Let's talk about quarks.
A physical space and time human mind. They're just nonsense.
Yes, but they're important. They're important to so much that we apply to everyday electronics and technology. And if you're just going to go back to like old school Radio Shack stuff and like, okay, positives, negatives, blah, 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 and if you want to do
that Radio Shack
chemistry
got
and like
for
not kill yourself or other people, like, electrons are important for understanding how things are attracted to or repelled to other things. Like the idea of a concept of an electron is not nonsense. The concept of an electron is wonderful, but we don't know everything.
I like how in this graphic the electron image is rocketing out of the research facility.
Because of course they are. Gotta go.
That's excellent.
I'm so negative about what you're doing. I gotta go. Oh my god. But in line with all of this, there's also, like you said, how are we taking pictures of all these things? And there are different methodologies. We've got these amazing synchrotrons that are able to spin things up to amazing speeds, smash them together, read the energy signals and figure out the signal from the noise. There's also other techniques that are working on using electrons to create microscopes. And so that's another study that just came out this week that's really very exciting. It's an attosecond electron microscope. Not fast enough to actually image an electron itself, but near infrared laser pulses go through harmonic generating crystals, UV laser pulses, and you get these really, really fast electron pulses, 5 femtoseconds. And those get split up and those get reflected. And then there's more speed and division and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, the laser pulses are timed exactly, and they are able through optical gating pulses. So they have a gate that they see at a particular time. It's like, I know when this is happening. It's like having one of those things that keeps you on time when you're doing music, going.
Metronome.
Yeah, metronome. Thank you, Blair. And so the beam, because of the difference between the beam and the pulses, you get these electrons and a diffraction gradient that can probe dynamics of what's actually going on. And so this is the fastest microscope ever. But there's also problems with microscopes like this because it's like a single laser pulse. And even though it's like, it's just sitting there and it's like, and fast pulsing. And if it's living tissue, it's going to be like, I'm a fried egg now. Yeah. Anyway, technology, it's moving forward and we're looking at tinier and tinier things, and everything is inferred from what we knew before, which I think is one of the most interesting and exciting aspects of all of this.
Just to clarify, just in case anybody was misunderstood, I'm not suggesting that electrons don't exist. By the way, just to make sure, I just wanted to point out, I'm just suggesting that they're nonsense. That doesn't mean that they're not real. That doesn't mean that they're not real and do important things and we can learn about them. I just mean they're nonsense.
We can use them.
Like, they will never make sense to a human brain how a thing can exist essentially undyingly they're immortal bits of energy that do not exist in time the way that we do, and that's
right, that exist in multiple places at once, and
never going to make sense to people. It just can't, because we're physical things with the time spans. We're not going to have that really understood ever conceptually. It'll always be nonsense, very real nonsense.
What we know we can use
all life and everything that we do in science utilizes this. It will still be nonsense at the end of the day.
You know what I think is nonsense? All sorts of nutritional information all over the place, and I have a kid now who's a teenager who's like, what should I be eating? And like, should I have more protein if I want to like do this, whatever. And anyway.
So this is a quick story that's going to go off the rails very quickly because it's from England.
If he says that going in, you know it's bad.
I know, right? That's like disclaimer, get ready.
So this is the story here. This is in the British Medical Journal, British Medical Journal Public Health. they have looked at the differences between households that are ordering groceries online compared to using apps to have already made food delivered to them. And they discovered that affluent households are twice as likely as less well-off ones to shop online for groceries. So it sounds like in England, the wealthier people are having their groceries delivered as opposed to folks that are still that have less money who are going to the store and picking it up themselves. Here's the part where I start to get confused. Households in lower social grades are up to twice as likely to use food delivery apps for takeaway meals. What is a lower social grade? I think you have to be British to understand it.
Yeah, it just means poor.
No, it unfortunately doesn't. It says
how do they define it?
Exactly. Users of these apps are more likely to be living with obesity, the findings indicate. Digital on-demand, this is from a press release, digital on-demand technology has rapidly and dramatically reshaped food distribution and delivery, making grocery and prepared takeaway meals more accessible and convenient, and increasing the range of options, according to the researchers. So, previous research has suggested
Justin, low social grade, just so you know, I'm assuming you looked this up already, but low income, low education, low job status. Low social rank due to income, lack of skills, or education.
Or, so
yes, it's a very British term.
It is very British term because it's or because it can be any of those. So
not all of them at the same time.
They are often related, however.
Yes. But what they find is like having good income didn't lead to healthier grocery online buying, because if you were of a lower social grade, you still tended to use the apps for takeaway meals. Like, wealth didn't help those people. So yes, it does show that also education is going to play a good part in this. But the fact that you can be, I don't know how you become lower social grade unless you have all three.
Right.
It's a very British thing, and that's why it's not.
I think the
interesting way of being able to separate the data, though, I guess.
Yeah, but what's interesting here in the results is that the food delivery apps were associated with living with obesity, but online grocery delivery was not. So there's something to do with the ability to cook your own food versus having food prepared that could be fast food, that could be, just like there's a lot of, like, when we talk about food delivery, it's not always going to be, the most healthy stuff, because that's more expensive. Yeah. So
and also there cucumbers from their Grubhub delivery.
Yeah, and it's also not. I don't know if it's also completely the expense thing, because there is also an element of when you're buying groceries online, you're not going to be as maybe tempted by the quick and easy snack foods that are displayed all around.
At checkout.
Yeah, you might have a little bit. You can go into the vegetable section to pick out the vegetables you want. They're not going to be like, here's some double cheese dipped cracker things that you can also have with your vegetable, whatever. You're not going to see the processed foods if you're looking in the vegetable section on your online thing. And you might be like, oh, I'll go ahead and get the organic one, and just with a click of a button here or there.
My favorite one is with one of the apps, or a few of them now. It's like, oh, you finished this order. Would you also like donuts with that? Or would you like us to deliver you ice cream? And they're like, but it turns out it's not just this is added from the same place you're ordering from to the, it's just as
you're sending that
this
pork
is a completely
to another location.
It blows my mind. Like the whole psychology and sales of it is out of control. Yeah.
So a couple things with this that I'm recognizing in particular. So as someone who the apps exist and I had a baby and I was stuck at home, chained to him 4 months, I did use them occasionally. If you go grocery shopping at a grocery store, you can walk around, you can go, oh, I'll get that and that and that, and that'll make dinner. You have to open that app with a plan. You have to have meal planned to say, these are the 6 things I need to make this meal. And if you have not thought that ahead, you don't end up with dinner
and if you're thinking about the mental health of somebody who's in a lower social status, who's probably working multiple jobs, taking care of kids, doesn't have a lot of time. When are you doing meal planning? You're supposed to be Martha Stewart. You're not friends with Snoop Dogg. Nobody's going to be narrating the humor in your life. And you suddenly are like, I'm just going to order the fish and whatever's,
Yep. It's the whole argument that like you and Beyonce have the same 24 hours is incorrect.
Beyonce has
many more hours. Yes, because she has people doing things for her. She does not have the same mental load. There's a different number of hours in her day. And part of that is just this idea that even if you have the ability to order groceries on the internet, you now no longer have to go to a grocery store. That is time that you have now given yourself back. So it's also like a feedback loop.
I have to jump in. I am so sorry. I think Beyonce is probably hardest working woman in show business and probably does not have a lot of spare time to do anything. I'm sure she
never said she had spare time. I never said she had spare time.
I'm not saying she's got a bunch of free time
in a day than I could do because I have to do all the monotonous things that she does not have to worry about.
I would like everybody in the room to raise their hand if when they're feeling low and they don't have time, they don't have the mental stability to deal with cooking for other people in the house who probably could cook for themselves, but for some reason don't. Like, raise your hand if you have actually clicked that order button more than once in a week. 3 times maybe. 5 times maybe.
I'm on the grocery scale. I really am. However,
I'm glad you cook your own food. That's nice, Justin.
But one of the cool things, because you guys mentioned it, Blair, you mentioned it. The thing about there's a site called Nemly, which I think only works in Denmark. But I'm sure there's versions of this with other grocery stores where you can buy the planned meals. So you can say, this is what I want to make. And then they group all those groceries that you want, that you need to have planned out for it with the click of a button. So you're like, I'm going to make this chicken dish here or this pasta dish over here or whatever it is. And you can click and you buy all the ingredients that go to make that. So when it shows up, and it's even like, will come a lot of times with instructions, do this, do that. Here's a little recipe for it. Or it's usually online. You have to.
There's all sorts of ways.
It does simplify it and save time and does the planning part for you. So there's ways of doing grocery online that's pretty quick and effective.
I recently discovered that I can shop online and then go to the grocery store and tell them that I'm there and they will bring the groceries to my car. And because it's not delivery, I don't have to pay a delivery fee. I also don't have to go into the store. So it does save me time. Excellent. I have discovered these things. And the app, they know what I like to shop for. So they go, oh, do you want to buy that again? I go, yeah, I want to buy that again.
Oh, but the reminders. The reminders. Yeah. I'm always leaving the grocery store forgetting like 2 or 3 things I needed.
But
the
yes. Algorithms and simplification. Yes, you say simplification. There's always a tactic. Find a new way to plan your day. Find a new way to do this. Simplify. Life gets faster and more complex all the time, and people are being used as cogs in the machine. And if we do not recognize that and accept that there are differences to how people use the 24 hours in their day based on privilege, then we are not in the right in how we talk about this. So anyway, not politics, but what you've brought up is a real hot button. I think I'm going to sit here with Blair on this one as somebody who has to cook meals a lot and then decides not to. And somebody who does the grocery shopping and decides not to. And then, where's the food? I don't know. Where is the food? Go feed yourself. Don't eat the poisonous things.
So also, to be fair, I'm not trying to say greatest dad ever, but I have raised a few children on raw food.
Did you personally do it the whole time? Nope. Other people did it.
Quite a bit of, here's a bunch of berries, graze at your own convenience. Oh, what would you like? Here's a bowl of nuts and dried fruit, and here is some healthy, crisp vegetables you can chomp on right out of the fridge. Like, to be fair, I do very little like cooking. So it's mostly putting together.
It still takes effort and planning, and you have to have stuff that's fresh, and it goes bad, and there's still a lot of mental and physical.
There's a lot of food waste.
There's a lot of food waste.
Tons of food waste. But also, I tend to boil. It's like my highest level of cooking a thing is boiling or baking in an oven. Like, I don't go far beyond. Like, here's a potato. Let's put some salt, pepper, or butter on it. Your choice. And away we go.
Amazing. Fruit and veggies and the protein. Everyone get a well-balanced diet of science. And I'm sorry if this got a little bit
I told you it was
contentious. I know, you said, you warned us. We knew where it was going.
I warned.
Nutrition is such a thing, and how we do it and how we deal with how nobody gets to live the same life, and some people have more privileged lives than others, and no judgment. I did not make dinner tonight. There are things left over that I will eat. This is This Week in Science, and I want you to know that if you appreciate all of the ups and downs and ins and outs of our science discussions, conversations, how they relate to our lives, I do hope that you continue being a part of our TWIS audience and share it with other people that you think would enjoy it as well. If you want to help support us, you can head over to twis.org, click on the Patreon link, and become a supporter on a monthly or yearly basis. And $10 or more per month, you'll be thanked on air at the end of the show. I'll try and pronounce your name after I've done a lot of other wording and speaking and like forgetting words and all that. And I don't know, maybe I'll get it right. I will really try. But there's also our Zazzle store where Blair's made an incredible amount of our merchandise, wonderful art that she's done on the calendars throughout the years, and also just general TWIS merchandise that does support everything that we do here. TWIS.org is the website there. Subscribe, share, enjoy. And we really can't do any of this without you. Thank you for your support. It is that time of the show as the later hours go for the TWIS wonderful part of the show called Blair's Animal Corner with Blair.
She loves our creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. If you want to hear about animals, she's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels. There's Animal Corner.
What you got, Blair?
Humpback whales. Well, I don't have them personally here. They're in Alaska, but
Okay.
This is researchers from the Marine Mammal Research Program at UH Hawaii, Institute of Marine Biology, and Alaska Whale Foundation have looked at humpback whales and their bubble nets. They use bubble nets to hunt, and they do that by they blow these bubbles in patterns that form nets with internal rings, basically ushering krill into dense pockets. And then between the size and depth of the net and the spacing between the bubbles, they are able to then blow and get a really good krill meal. That's the scientific term.
I like sound effects are always my favorite. Yeah.
It's integral to my teaching style. I'm sorry, everyone. Anyway, so the researchers put non-invasive suction cup tags on the whales. They flew drones over solitary bubble netting humpback whales in Alaska, and they collected data on their underwater movements. And these researchers have determined, according to them, that this bubble net use is tool use.
Wait. Bubbles as tools? What does that mean for like the mantis shrimp?
Great question. What does it mean for the bats that use the leaves to amplify sound that I called tool use? And everyone was like, that's not a tool. So I think specifically.
I can't believe that.
Anyway, thank you.
Sorry.
I appreciate. So specifically, they are calling this tool use, and particularly complex tool use, because they are counting this as a situation where they are creating a tool specific to a situation, and it requires a well-honed skill developed over time to make the right bubbles in the right way. So specifically, they're saying, hey, there's lots of animals that use tools, but there's only a few animals that make tools, and so they're making it.
So yeah, that's a manipulation of material in the environment to do a thing that wasn't being done before.
Yeah.
Right. And it's hard to grasp, I think, because we're landlubbers and
there's not a lot of other choices of materials in the ocean.
And thinking about air as a tool is like, no, it isn't. But to that, like, couldn't we use water as a tool? I think so. We could use water.
We do. We do all the time.
Yeah. My gosh, Jinx.
Hello. So if we can use water as a tool, then they can use air as a tool, I suppose. So it makes sense to me. I think it is a little unusual. And now I feel like we're getting further into that conversation of like, why does it matter? Why does it matter what's called a tool? If you expand what a tool is enough, it's everything. All animals use tools.
Yeah, but here's the specific aspect, which is that it is intentional manipulation of an environmental object that is not your body for an objective. Right? I just made that definition up right now, but
it sounds good. It sounds like you know what you're talking about, and I'll take it. No, I agree with you. I understand it. I understand why this is tool use. I agree that it is tool use, but I do think this is one of those situations where, you know how we were like, there's a lot of animals that don't talk. Actually, this one talks, we just can't hear it. Actually, this one talks, they just do it when we're not around, right? And the definition gets wider and wider and wider, and the kind of the subset gets wider and wider. And I see tool use as a conversation that's going to get like a bracket that's going to get expanded over and over and over, because I am just hypothesizing that there are lots of animals that manipulate their environment in a specific way to do what they do. I don't think it's that unique. I think it's unique for us to find it and record it and measure it. And so this is one of those opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's the question of, is it the patterned behavior of creating a honeycomb by a honeybee? Is it the specific behavior of using a pencil to write a message to somebody else? Is it, is it the use of an abalone shell by an octopus as something to hide in? I like your question, but I think what it gets at is, the intent. So learning and also intent. Is there an objective, or is it simply patterned behavior? And then additionally, do we talk about the material? So ants or termites are adapted to build their colonies in different materials, except for carpenter ants, whatever. Anyway, so that's their environmental adaptation, but is that it's not tool, but it's a tool for survival.
Is a brick a tool?
If you throw it at someone.
Okay, so then we're getting into the specific use of the item makes it a tool or not. So
I think so.
that gets more complicated. Do you think a beaver using a log is a tool? Because they're building a structure.
Yes.
So then, would the material that an ant is building an ant hill with would be a tool. You see?
Okay, Blair. Slippery slope.
Complicated. It gets complicated. This, whenever we try to make very clear lines between things, it gets complicated. That's all I'm saying. I would say the only clear line that I see between tool use and not tool use, which is a conversation happening in the chat right now, if it is part of your own physical body, it is not a tool.
True. Yes.
So using your tongue to do a thing.
That's just your body. It's you.
Right. Right. Yeah. So that is not a tool. But anything from your environment could be a tool.
But I love the cognitive aspect of it. Yeah.
Yes.
The
question of wood is not a tool, but a hammer is a tool.
The blowhole of the whale.
What if you use a piece of wood to hammer something? Is that wood then a tool?
Yes.
So that we could agree on. So then it has to be removed and it can't be the final product. So the blowhole of the whale, not a tool. That's part of the body, Kiki.
Correct.
The bubbles are not the final product. They are inconsequential to the act of the thing, right? So as opposed to the tree that's cut down by the beaver, that's the objective. That's the thing that's going to be used. But the bubbles are in between, right? The whale and the action of the krill. Therefore, it fits in between. It's not the final thing that it's trying to do. It's not trying to make bubbles. The bubbles don't do anything. But the bubbles for the whale. But the bubbles do something to the krill. They're acting upon something else in the environment. And that's what makes it sort of this tool. It's that one step removed where you've created an intermediary device to do work for you, which is to collect the krill in this bubble.
What's the work?
I'm not saying you're wrong.
The tool does work. Yeah, what's the work?
But the
work is to corral the krill.
The beaver builds the dam not to build the dam, but to pool up the water.
Yeah.
So it is a similar step process.
Then it could be the intermediate. But I mean, using the teeth as the object to do the work isn't the tool.
Nope.
The log coming down could be the tool.
The bubbles are the wood. The krill is the water. It's the same. So that's all I'm saying. I'm
on board.
Right? So that's all I just wanted to bring up is that it is very complicated.
I love it.
How you want to identify what a tool is, what tool use is, what tool creation is. If something immediately disappears like a bubble, did you create anything? Or is it gone?
Oh my gosh, philosophy.
Anyway.
This is existential now, Blair.
Because I thought it was very interesting. Think about it later when you're showering. Anyway.
Bubble thoughts.
Yeah, bubble thoughts in the shower. But I think this leads me into my last story of the evening perfectly.
All right.
Which is a bit of nightmare fuel for everybody, but I thought it was fascinating.
And I know it's nightmares for you.
Yeah. So this is the orb weaver spider, Araneus ventricosus, and the firefly, Abscondita terminalis. So the firefly, the males make multi-purpose flashes with 2 lanterns. They have 2 lanterns on their butt to attract females. The females, they only have 1 lantern. They make single pulse flashes. So that's how they tell each other apart and they can woo one another. That's what fireflies are doing when they're making those beautiful colors and lights. They are saying, hey, they're at the club. Anyway,
they're flashing
the orb weaver spiders, they love to eat fireflies, catch them in their nets. And researchers, actually, I wanted to read you the actual kind of science-ese of this research project. And I'm going to see if you can actually understand what's happening, and then I'll explain it. Drawing from extensive field observations, we propose that Araneus ventricosus practices deceptive intraspecific communication by first ensnarling firefly males in its web, and then predisposing the entrapped male fireflies to broadcast bioluminescent signals that deviate from female attracting signals typically made by A. terminalis males, and instead mimic the male attracting signals typically made by females.
Wait.
The outcome is that the entrapped male fireflies broadcast false signals that lure more male fireflies into the web.
Because it's ladies' night at the club.
Ladies' night. So what does this actually mean? What it means is they were walking around. They were looking at fireflies in webs, in spider webs. They found that spiders more often captured male fireflies when a spider was present. And that, in fact, they pretty much only saw male fireflies in the webs. When a spider was absent from the web, a lot less fireflies getting caught. They also noticed that the signals made by male fireflies in the webs looked more like female signals than male signals, even though they were male fireflies. They were doing single pulse signals, only using one of their lanterns.
It's really
what
an
the heck
SOS.
is happening here? Yes. So that was the first thought. But because they only do it when a spider is actively biting them, the fact that they're caught in the web before and they don't do it, that means there's something about the spider's presence that is making them do this. So it would appear that upon capturing in the web the male, the spider will then deploy a specialized prey handling procedure, which means they don't know what it is yet, involving repeated wrap bite attacks that cause the firefly to act like a female to attract more males to the web. So this is the next step of this research project. They don't know yet. They want to figure it out. Their hypotheses are that it could have to do with the venom. It could have to do with the mechanics of the bite itself.
Location.
Or something else entirely.
One something else entirely?
Just something else. Who knows?
It just could be survival strategy.
Another thing.
This thing wants to eat a male fly. Okay. Well, maybe if I got somebody else.
Here's the issue. It seems like
show up.
This is just what I gleaned from the article. I was not a researcher on this project. I do not know the minutia. But what I gleaned was that firefly is already toast at this point.
Absolutely.
Spider is chowing down. Yeah. There's no saving that firefly at this juncture.
It's like the fungus that takes over the ant that lures other, predators or to their death. But it's a fascinating idea that because of the sexual selection that has led to the attraction of males to the female lantern signal, that the spiders have somehow enabled a system, adapted a system, evolved a system that basically that creates the female signals because the males are going to be attracted to that. And so they will get more prey that way. I mean, it is something that seems like it would fit natural selection, right? It's like, you do it this way and more flies come. You do it the other way and fewer flies come. So this works.
Let me ask you this now, really big, both of your noodles.
Stop it.
Is this tool use?
Yep. Yeah, it's playing it like an instrument. It really is. It's playing that fly like it making
the fire
wildlife call
flute.
Out of,
yeah. I think that's the thing that I thought about when I was researching and when I was reviewing my stories. I was like,
fascinating.
Uh-oh. Can you use a corpse as a tool?
Military have
Swiss Army Man.
You certainly can't. It's a decoy duck.
Yeah. Military tactics do it all the time. I don't know. What about Bob? That was a whole movie. Was it Bob? No.
What
Weekend at Bernie's. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, I don't know. Now I have to ask, is this tool use? Maybe. I don't know. Does it matter? Probably not.
Yep. Shower thoughts. I mean, shower bubble thoughts. I mean, gosh darn it, Blair.
Shower spider thoughts.
Oh, no. Not that one.
I actually hate it when there's a spider in the shower. It's the worst. Especially if it's near your face and you're just kind of like sensing up your hair, whatever you ah! I actually just found a web in the corner, but there's no spider. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I like my spiders.
I am
I end up in my bed or my
100%.
bath. Yeah. 100%.
I am somehow like immune to spider fear. I don't have it. I think spiders
Some
are
people
cool.
don't have it.
I think they're nice. They don't bother me. I will freak out. Like, oh, despite the size difference between me and a mosquito, for some reason they like that. I'll have that reaction to a mosquito. Like let me jump out of the way of a passing mosquito. But I don't have it with spiders. I don't. They don't bother me unless it's a black widow. One of the
growing
known
up in the Central Valley,
dangers.
I just can't even with the black widows. But anyway,
little dark
What
corners
about-
of every garage in the Central Valley. Hide.
oh my
Hide black
basement.
widows.
I never would
Yeah.
look. My dad would say, "Go in the basement." I say, "No, they're under the stairs." Even though they're scared of me, I don't care. I don't
Compared
know.
to
What about spears
any other
and
spider.
pikes and things that people
Okay,
would throw at
so-
you?
Yes.
Yes.
Great questions. So there's a study out of the University of California at Berkeley that I'm excited about, even if I think they might be wrong, sort of, anyway.
Fair enough.
This is from a press release. How did early humans use sharpened rocks to bring down megafauna 13,000 years ago? Did they
Very easily.
Did they throw spears tipped with carefully crafted razor-sharp rocks called Clovis points? Did they surround and jab mammoths and mastodons? Did they scavenge wounded animals using Clovis points as versatile tools to harvest meat and bones for food and supplies? UC Berkeley archaeologists say the answer might be none of the above. And so far, I'm in total agreement, and I'm excited because I'm like, this is the thing that Justin imagined maybe was how this was more likely done. And so, but instead, the researchers say humans may have braced the butt of their pointed spears against the ground and angled the weapon upward in a way that would impale a charging animal. The force would have driven the spear deeper into the predator's body, unleashing a more damaging blow than even the strongest prehistoric hunters would have been capable of on their own. And here, I'm almost in total agreement, except they already have left the premise by saying a predator's body. Like something attacking a human would have to be charging a human, it sounds like. And then the human would brace this spear to get a deeper penetration of the predator's body. Okay. This is not a hunting scenario. This you would have to taunt every mastodon to come attack you. You would have to taunt bison to attack you. You would have to get an angry saber-toothed cat or a smilodon to come and attack you first, and then brace the spear. Like, this is not a survival. This is like maybe a self-defense like tactic. If you get in a bad scenario while hunting, but this isn't like a hunting strategy. So, but I will digress and I will continue. And this is also my critical thinking, but yet imagination has led me to believe that maybe Neanderthals have also used a similar tactic to what, but it's 50,000 years earlier, 15 to 18,000 miles west of the Clovis culture. Caveats I will get to in a minute. So back to the press release. Drawing upon multiple sources of writing and artwork, a team of Berkeley archaeologists reviewed historical evidence from around the world about people hunting with planted spears. This is where the human plants the blunt end of the spear in the ground or against a tree stump, and the pointy end towards the beast that is bearing down. And while there's a lot of accounts that they found from artwork and in literature, there's actually not really good evidence that this was used as hunting strategies by any cultures at any point. So it's kind of an interesting...
more defensive.
It sounds very much defensive, but it could be a defensive thing while hunting. I think it's the opening scene of that 300, where like the young warrior is like being attacked by a wolf and holds the spear like this with the blunt end, in the ground, and the wolf pounces and then ends up stuck on it.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So this group ran some experimental studies of stone weapons that focused on pike hunting techniques, revealing how spears react to the simulated force of a charging animal. And what was interesting here, too, is this is something I didn't really know until the study, so I really appreciate it. There is a bone structure. You have the Clovis point actually doesn't go onto a wooden stick. It goes onto this shorter bone structure that it's sort of cleaved into a little bit, situated on. And then there would be a wooden structure behind it to make it longer. And what they discovered is by the fact that they were engineered this way, when you get into not a throwing, but one of these animal charging scenarios, once the sharpened rock pierces the flesh, if it hits anything, if it hits bone, if it stops,
ow.
The stone tip is stopped, but the bone splits in the shaft behind it, and then does a tremendous amount of more damage and continues to penetrate around that bone structure that it hits. So it becomes, they say, the equivalent of a amplified. It's like getting struck 3 times instead of just once. It has sort of a ballistic bullet sort of effect where it's sort of exploding within the thing that it's attacking. And then it becomes enough force to kill mastodons, bison, saber-toothed cats, not a problem. Previous research on thrown spears finds that it almost doesn't make sense, right? The amount of force you can generate throwing one of these, and they're pretty big. They can be the size of this is an older one, but like the size of an iPhone, these stone tips. Throwing one of those, the penetration rate is not going to really slow down a 9-ton mammoth. And it's just not
even going to penetrate a boar, really, I don't think.
Even a boar, it's going to be, yeah. So this is, they're saying this is great evidence for this planted pike type method. Now, what they're missing is they have thousands and thousands of these Clovis points across, mostly in the West, but also across the United States. And they have some evidence of the bone secondary structure that it mounts to. But they don't have the wood because things in 13,000 years disappear. So all of wood history is largely lost to us at this point. And so they don't know how they were planted into the ground. They don't know what the base of this mechanism looks like. But they do know that the hunting tools were very time intensive. It says they might go hundreds of miles without access to the right kind of long straight poles from which to fashion spears. It's a time-intensive process to make the stone Clovis points. The supporting mounts to it and shaft may have taken even longer than the Clovis points. Like this is
because those have to be a structure that doesn't blow apart when the stone gets forced between the wood and the bone.
Right. So they say it stands to reason that they wouldn't want to risk throwing or destroying these precious tools without really being sure that they were going to land them the prey. But again, these scenarios are not sounding like hunting strategies. So this is the Justin, not part of this study, but the Justin take on it is that this sounds much more to me like this would work if they were planted with maybe a little bit of camouflage on one side of where herded animals were, and then they were chased into it, sort of like a trap.
Right.
So then any of the charging through, running away from the noisy humans, some of them would be getting impaled by these structures as they tried to run through this network of mounted poles. And if any of them didn't get interacted with, they're preserved. So all the time and energy you went into setting it up, but they missed, that you still get to reuse your pike, your spear again. It's not been damaged because it didn't have any interaction. It's not like when you throw it, and these are very sharp stones.
And then it's like stuck in an animal and it's gone.
And they have found evidence of this before. They have found evidence of deeply implanted Clovis points in animals that didn't get cut up by humans. But they've also found deeply implanted ones that were from multiple spears. So it's not likely that they convinced the mastodon to charge humans like 6, 7, 8 times, right? But if you can imagine them getting chased through some sort of a bluff, maybe slightly disguised.
But that's what we've talked about before, is like the running of buffalo, like down a canyon to a narrow gap, or this concept of human hunters forcing their prey into a situation, where it's like, oh, they fell off a ledge and then they died. It's like, well, maybe there was more and different stuff involved in how it all worked. And we have these pictures of like wolf packs surrounding a single animal with their spears. And maybe it's possible, if humans did at certain times know that they were hunting in synchrony with a certain plan, that they could then all stab together and not lose their precious instruments of death. But I think this is there's a lot of interesting ideas here, but the technology was amazing.
There's evidence of humans throughout human history hunting sort of herd prey, which is going to be like your bison here and the mammoth and mastodons, and having particular places where they'll hunt. So these herd animals, they often follow the same pathways when migrating from one area to another. They're heading to the same watering hole from that one to a next one further away, or whatever where their food source is. Elephants famously never forget. They follow these paths over and over again. So it wouldn't also be too hard to know that, like, hey, they're going to be coming through here at some point. All we have to do is set it up so that they, as they pass through, we get them running. We create a little la 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 la, la, and then chase them.
La la la.
That's how I would do it. I don't know. Everybody has their own hunting. Mine is too la 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 la. And then
sounds
they're like, oh, terrible singing, run away. So, and it's some of the oldest Neanderthal art. The dots that show the animal and what looks like a person waving a thing, to me has always looked like chasing animals into the spikes. It's always looked like that to me. And now that if they're talking about this would have required charging animals for these spears to work, it doesn't make sense to me at all that you would have to get all of your prey to chase you in order to hunt it. They can't just be charging at you every time for you to, because also like a 9-ton elephant.
No, you tricked them. You tricked them.
I tricked you into running into me with my spear. Okay, so you killed it and it fell, and now you're gone. It's crushed. Like there's no way that made sense. So
No.
they're going to do some more studies. They're going to create a fake mastodon on a sled and charge it into spheres is the next part of their experiment.
It's gonna.
And I can't wait to see that. I think that's going to be exciting. And maybe we should have one of
maybe they should
these
put reeds and fronds around the fake spears as well to see how they can disguise them with natural materials.
Because if you're a mastodon running through a brush or even some low shrubbery and trees, you're not going to be afraid of it. You're not going to be like, oh, I need to go around this. You bust through everything, right? When you run, and
except
then you get
all
stuck
of the
and you're
spears.
Like,
oh. Oopsies.
So this is maybe we should talk about some point starting to get one of these researchers on this project on, so I can ask them if they already, of course, have thought of this. But they're West Coast time, so it might be one of those things we can do.
I want all the West Coast researchers on the show. That makes it easier.
Yeah.
Blair's exhausted, and I have a couple more stories to go. So I'm going to pull them all together into the major concept of, oh my gosh, our brain is so crazy and we get to look at it differently now. And really, there's different ways of looking at it. Okay, so number one, researchers at UC Davis, funded by Burroughs Wellcome Fund, NSF, and National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke and National Eye Institute, created a new microscope, which is, like I was talking about earlier, it's not electron-based. This one is photon-based. And so historically, researchers have been looking at a lot of biological materials using what's called two-photon fluorescence, where you label cells with fluorescent markers and you shoot photons, laser beams, at the materials. And if a certain thing is happening, then they fluoresce. And you have like the two different photons, so they time with each other so that you can actually know when things are happening and where they're happening, and do a lot of optical coordination. But the big question is, how can we create more accurate, high-speed images of neural activity as it's happening at cellular resolution without like killing the brain cell? And so these researchers, and there's another study that came out at the end of last month at about the same time dealing with similar stuff. But these researchers are really taking the concept of using photons and fluorescence to the next level. And it's really incredible because do you know what a DMD chip is? Ever heard of a DMD chip? A digital micro mirror device. They're used in LCD products, LCD screens, OLED screens. They are basically pixels that are made up of thousands of individual little tiny mirrors, like a disco ball. And each one of those little teeny tiny mirrors is on a hinge that has like two electrodes on it. So it's on, off, on, off. And so each of those thousands of mirrors that are in one pixel, basically, they can all individually be controlled. Not just on, off, but also in terms of how fast they go on, off, and on, off. DMD chips are responsible for so much of like the cool light shows, not projection, but the screen technology that we see at festivals, and modern projection and projectors, even like little micro projectors. They have DMD chips. Little teeny, tiniest mirrors. I think this, I've been thinking about it like all weekend, cannot get over it. The algorithms that they're using can steer light in a way that allows one pixel with all the thousands of little mirrors to have like 256 shades of gray between white and black because of the speed at which they reflect the light. So you have this pulsing, like a time pulsing of light that comes back to you, and because of how fast it's coming back to you, your eye detects it. in different ways. Okay. So they've been using this. They have been using these DMD chips and processors, and they're putting them together with lasers. And now they're putting them together with the 2-photon optical microscopy. And they've been capturing signals at a speed of 198 hertz, which is faster than the traditional 2-photon microscopes. But the exciting thing is the way that they're pulsing everything and the way the mirrors work is that the 2-photon microscopy, the way it's always worked, is like a laser beam burning through the cells. And so it kills stuff as it looks at it. Laser goes in, stuff gets diffracted out, and cell dies. Not so good. The timing of all of this is short enough that it doesn't harm the cells, the neurons, and they're actually wondering if they can take it into even deeper abilities and different voltages to get better readouts of active neuronal activity. So that's what they've been doing, looking at calcium firing in cells with this particular study. And I'm super excited about it. I was trying to get the images up, but for some reason, my internet doesn't want to get to the website. So I'm not showing pictures of it right now. Moving on from that, your memory.
Oh, not my memory. Some normal person's memory.
Our memory is weird. Totally weird. So there's a bunch of studies out that I'm just going to kind of summarize together in a big story of, this is new and different. Okay. So memory and learning and memory and the way that we put things together, we always okay, you learn something, things fire. Okay. Neurons that fire together wire together, and repetition is good for that. And the repetition is going to create these neuronal networks that get stronger with repetition, blah, 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 all this stuff. One study out this week found that there are multiple cell types, ones that are born when you're born, ones that are born later, ones that are long-lived. These different cell types react at and store information for different periods of time. And so the ability to form memories of lasting length is that you have these different cell types responding and actually being activated based on the type of cell they are. Add that to another study that just came out that said that, it's not the fire together, it's the kind of firing together. If a cell is just it's activated, not completely activated, but it's kind of excited, but it doesn't get to the firing point. If within a certain period of time, it does get activated to the firing point, it can help strengthen a memory. So one study suggests out of eLife that cells that don't fire together actually do wire together. So that if you have two events occurring, but within a particular amount of time, your brain can actually connect them, which explains a lot of psychological stuff related to, experiences that we have and fears and other ways that our brains work to within, it's forever it's been termed just long-term potentiation, and now it's this heterogeneous potentiation, that different cells, and we know now that there are different cells that are born at different times in your life and that live different lifetimes and that get activated for different lengths of time into a network. That also, in addition to this, the network can be activated and not activated. It's way more complicated than we ever thought.
So I have a question.
Oh, please. I have so many.
Neon Xeon.
No.
You
really?
had...
Back to the beginning?
course. Gotta do a callback. So, you had lost the word xenon.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
Okay. Yes, it's
and
there.
then neon, which was something closely worded and had the same. Well, you saw that and you went, boom! I've recovered. I found a way to excite that memory through a connection it had somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a weird thing, but like the jogging of memory, and they can be really old memories. You meet a relative you haven't seen for a while, and they, hey, remember when you were 6 years old? There was this trip we went on with the rest of the family. Oh, I have not thought of this trip in 30, 40 years. And now I'm remembering several things about it.
Yeah.
Hasn't been re-excited, hasn't been so
Yes.
When we talk about like memories lasting for certain periods of time, and yet we can have a childhood memory or a very old memory or a word that's lost or a thing we haven't thought about in the longest time, and then something jogs that memory and suddenly it's all accessible again. Is this like that network of low firing or unfiring that's still there, but it's only when it's that network is sort of being activated that it's reaching where that location is?
Yeah. So it's what I have always thought of is this like very direct, something stimulated, something fires, it fires in synchrony with a bunch of other things, it creates a thing. You see something, it creates the same network activation, same thing happens, right? But now what these 3 studies really suggest that there are, not just the network or the one cell that gets activated, there are these subpopulations that are kind of activated and kind of not. And like maybe they can be related to a memory. And so they could, maybe if they get stimulated by a different thing, then they could, get trigger a memory that you wouldn't have been triggered by otherwise. Like, but neon to xenon, that is like, okay, contextual information that puts it in a path. It's like a particular categorization that like there's a network in my brain that probably like was like categorization, right?
Yeah.
But then there's also this plasticity of acquisition and the time, short-term, long-term memory, which neurons are involved in that. And there are whole different populations of at least 3 different populations of neurons that are involved in that aspect of it as well. So what goes short term, what goes long term, what creates the network, what is like kind of getting its way in there, and this like, I was kind of excited about it, but now I'm in there. Kind of, it's the whole process, the way that we've thought about it, and if you think of it from like the artificial intelligence neural network model that has been developed for years, they're missing a lot. And like there's a whole bunch of work that still needs to be done based on like the stuff that's just come out on these particular studies. Final study that I thought was just mind-blowing, and I want to leave you with it, is that maybe the energetic signals of ion fluctuations within the neurons in our neural system, they emit photons, and the myelin sheaths are there to encase the photons and allow them to have quantum fluctuations so that you can have quicker propagation speed throughout your body through quantum entanglement than can actually be explained by the ion flow from your brain through the spinal cord to your foot to kick a soccer ball or whatever it is. Anyway, just gonna leave you with that one because I thought.
So do we have to watch out for future athletes like quantum doping?
Awesome.
The neurons?
Yeah, but no. But what the researchers suggest is that these are published in Physical Review E. That there's so many assumptions made in this study too. I'm not saying like, oh yeah, we're powered by photons, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it's an interesting idea. Lots of assumptions. They made myelin tubes, which isn't, whatever. They did math, and now they're suggesting that quantum entanglement of photons within our nervous system, thanks to myelin, allow us to be conscious. So
I love at the end of the 2 hours of the show, we're like, science did stuff. There was math. Maybe it's right. But it's cool. But maybe. All right, let's go.
I'm just trying to end the show because Blair needs to go to bed.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
I just want to leave everyone
Have we done it? Is
on
it another episode?
What?
Oh,
it's
sorry.
the end of the episode. I think we've done it. I finished all my stories. Are you done?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've done it all. Blair, are you done?
My myelin sheaths are turned in for the night. So
I mean,
I'm already between my myelin sheets, ready to fall asleep. So whatever
your Mylon sheets? I don't want to know about that.
It's a whole new bamboo product that's like, I don't know, whatever. Oh, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. All of you in the chat rooms, everyone who's been live. Thank you. We appreciate all of your engagement and your comments. And even if all your comments didn't make it through the algorithms in the chat rooms to keep everyone happy and safe, thank you for making your comments. Sometimes beaver isn't the word that can be, acceptable. Anyway, I do want to say thank you to certain people who do help with the show. Blair, Justin, thank you for being here tonight. I know it's a thing for all of us. All of you who are here, thank you. Fada, thank you for your help with social media and show notes. Identity 4, thank you so much for recording the show. Gord, Arnlore, thank you for helping to keep the chat rooms really happy, pleasant places to be. And Rachel, thank you for editing the show. I hope you have a good time having fun this weekend. And of course, I cannot let an episode go without thanking our Patreon sponsors. Thank you to Eden Mundell, Alan Viola, Aaron Anathema, Arthur Kepler, Greg Potts, Mary Gertz, Teresa Smith, Richard Badge, Bob Coles, Kent Northcote, George Corris, Pierre Velazarb, John Radoswamy, Chris Wozniak, Vegard Shefstad, Donovan Styles, a.k.a. Don Stylo, Ali Coffin, Reagan Shubru, Sarah Forfar, Don Mundus, P.I.G., Stephen Alberon, Daryl Myshak, Andrew Swanson, Fredis 104, Sky Luke, Paul Ronovich, Kevin Reardon, Noodles, Jack, Brian Carrington, David E., Youngblood, Sean Clarence Lamb, John McKee, Greg Riley, Mark Hessenflow, Steve Leisman, a.k.a. Seema, Ken Hayes, Howard Tan, Christopher Rappin, Richard Brendan-Ish, Johnny Gridley, Remy Day, G. Burton Lattimore, Flying Out, Christopher Dwyer, Briggs, John Atwood, Rudy Garcia, J. Wilkinson, Rodney Lewis, Paul Philip Shane, Kurt Larson, Craig Landing, Sue Doster, Jason Knowles, David Neighbor, Eric Knapp, Lon Makes, EO, Adam Mishkan, Aaron Lutham, Bob Calder, Marjorie, Paulie Disney, David Simmerly, Patrick Pecoraro, Tony Steele. And if you would like to support us on Patreon, head over to twist.org and click on the Patreon link. But on next week's show,
we will be back broadcasting on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific time, live from our Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook channels.
Hey, do you want to listen to us as a podcast? Perhaps while you are clearing all of the spider webs from the corners of your rooms? Just search for This Week in Science wherever podcasts are found. If you enjoyed the show, get your friends to subscribe as well.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes and links to stories will be available on our website, www.twist.org. And you can also sign up for newsletters.
We love your feedback. If there's a topic you would like us to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, something else that tickles your fancy, please let us know on one of our social media accounts. Some of us check them still. Otherwise, you can also just send us an email. That's the better one. Send us an email. Just be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, in the subject line, or your email will be spam filtered into an electron cloud that's shaped really weird.
As are we all. We look forward to discussing science with you again next week. And if you learned anything from the show, remember,
it's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth. And I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in 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 Science.